sometimes the most important person in the room is the one nobody bothered to notice. The ballroom shimmered beneath crystal chandeliers that scattered warm light across polished marble floors, where laughter floated as easily as the music drifting from a string quartet tucked into the corner. Waiters in crisp white jackets moved gracefully between tables dressed in ivory linen, balancing silver trays filled with sparkling cider and delicate desserts. Every guest seemed to belong to a world of effortless success, dressed in tailored tuxedos, elegant gowns, and smiles polished through years of privilege. Nathan Walker belonged there more than anyone. At 45, he had built one of the nation's largest family investment companies from almost nothing after losing his wife nearly a decade earlier. Business magazines admired his discipline. Charity organizations praised his generosity. Television hosts called him one of America's quiet billionaires because he rarely sought attention despite giving millions to children's hospitals and education programs. Yet none of those accomplishments filled the empty chair waiting for him every evening when he returned to his silent estate. Raising his 12-year-old son, Ethan, had become both his greatest responsibility and his greatest source of strength. That evening, however, Ethan was away on a school leadership retreat, leaving Nathan to attend the annual Hope Horizons Children's Foundation Gala alone. The evening was supposed to celebrate generosity, but something about the room felt strangely hollow. Conversations revolved around mergers, vacation homes, luxury cars, and exclusive invitations. Applause erupted whenever another large donation was announced, but Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that people were competing to be seen rather than gathering to truly see others. He politely accepted another handshake, nodded through another introduction, and excused himself from a conversation about private islands. His eyes wandered beyond the glittering tables toward the enormous windows overlooking the city skyline. That was when he noticed her. A little girl, perhaps 8 years old, stood completely alone beside the glass. She wore a pale blue dress that looked carefully pressed but clearly well-loved, and a white ribbon rested neatly in her blonde hair. She wasn't crying. She wasn't asking anyone for help. She simply watched the room with quiet eyes, as though she had been waiting for someone for a very long time. Hundreds of guests walked past without slowing down. Some nearly brushed against her without realizing she was there. Others glanced for a split second before returning to conversations that suddenly seemed far more important than a child standing alone at a celebration dedicated to helping children. Nathan felt something tighten inside his chest. It reminded him of the afternoons when Ethan had silently waited outside soccer practice after his mother's funeral, hoping someone would notice that he was trying to be brave. The memory never truly faded. Nathan set his untouched glass on a nearby table and walked across the ballroom. His polished shoes echoed softly against the marble floor, but the little girl didn't move. She continued staring at the lights reflecting across the windows until he stopped a respectful distance away and lowered himself to one knee so they were nearly eye level. He offered the same gentle smile that had comforted his son through countless difficult nights. "Hi there," he said softly. "My name's Nathan. Are you here with your family?" The little girl slowly turned toward him. Her blue eyes were calm, thoughtful, and far older than a child should ever need them to be. She studied his face for several long seconds before answering in a voice so quiet that the music almost carried it away. "I'm waiting," she whispered. Nathan smiled kindly. "Waiting for who?" She looked back toward the crowded ballroom where elegant guests continued laughing beneath glittering lights, completely unaware of the conversation unfolding only a few feet away. Then she answered with words Nathan would remember for the rest of his life. "I'm waiting for the first person who actually sees me." The little girl did not lower her eyes after speaking. She simply returned her attention to the sea of elegant strangers moving beneath the chandeliers as if she had already accepted that most of them would continue walking without ever noticing her. Nathan remained kneeling for a moment, letting her words settle quietly in his heart. He had negotiated billion-dollar acquisitions, spoken before thousands of investors, and answered difficult questions from journalists across the country, yet nothing had prepared him for the honesty carried by the voice of an 8-year-old child. He followed her gaze across the ballroom. Couples laughed over polished glasses. Executives exchanged business cards with practiced smiles. Cameras flashed near the donation stage where another oversized check was being presented for applause. The foundation celebrated children every year, yet somehow one child had become invisible inside the celebration itself. Nathan looked back at her with a gentleness that came naturally only when he spoke with young people. "Well," he said quietly, "I see you." The corners of her lips lifted ever so slightly, not into a smile but into something closer to relief. "You really do?" she asked. "I do," Nathan answered. "And I think everyone deserves to be seen." For the first time since he had approached her, the little girl relaxed her shoulders. She held a small white gift bag against her chest, carefully protecting it with both hands as though it contained something precious beyond measure. Nathan noticed that the ribbon tied around the handle had been retied several times, suggesting someone had taken great care even if the wrapping paper itself was inexpensive. "My name is Lily," she said softly. "It is nice to meet you, Lily." "Are you the man from the magazines?" she asked with innocent curiosity. Nathan laughed quietly. "Sometimes they print my picture. My mom says magazines never tell the whole story." Nathan smiled again. "Your mother sounds wise." Lily nodded proudly. "She is." Before he could ask another question, a pair of well-dressed guests walked past them. One gentleman slowed for only a second before leaning toward his companion. "Mr. Walker always finds interesting conversations," he whispered with a polite chuckle before continuing toward the ballroom. Nathan pretended not to hear, but Lily did. She lowered her eyes briefly. "I am sorry," she whispered. "People think I do not belong here." Nathan answered without hesitation. "Belonging is not decided by expensive clothes or important invitations." Lily looked up again, studying him carefully as if deciding whether his kindness was genuine or simply another form of politeness. After several quiet seconds she seemed satisfied. "Today is my birthday," she said. Nathan blinked with surprise. "Happy birthday, Lily." "Thank you." "Have you had birthday cake yet?" She gently shook her head. "Not yet." "Are you waiting for someone before you celebrate?" Lily nodded once. "I promised I would wait." Nathan noticed the gift bag again. "Is that your birthday present?" No, she hugged it a little tighter. "It is for my mom." Something inside Nathan shifted. Most children spent their birthdays hoping to receive gifts. Lily had arrived carrying one for someone else. The orchestra began playing a softer melody while the ballroom lights dimmed slightly in preparation for the evening's featured presentation. Across the room, volunteers encouraged guests to take their seats. Nathan glanced toward the stage before returning his attention to Lily. Nothing happening beneath the bright lights seemed nearly as important anymore. "Would you like to sit with me while you wait?" he asked gently. Lily looked toward the entrance instead of answering. Her expression remained hopeful, patient, almost certain that someone would appear at any moment. Finally she spoke in the same calm voice that never carried a trace of complaint. "I cannot leave this spot," she said. "If my mom comes looking for me and I am gone, she will think she missed my birthday." Lily never took a single step away from the tall windows. She stood with the quiet patience of someone who had learned that keeping a promise sometimes meant waiting longer than anyone else believed was possible. Nathan rose slowly to his feet but stayed beside her, resisting the constant vibration of his phone as messages from assistants and board members piled up unanswered. Across the ballroom, the master of ceremonies welcomed distinguished guests to their seats, and another round of applause rolled through the grand hall like distant thunder. Nathan had attended hundreds of events like this, yet he had never felt farther from the stage than he did now. His attention remained fixed on the little girl beside him. "Your mom must be very special," he said gently. Lily nodded without hesitation. "She is the strongest person I know." Does she know you are waiting here? Yes. She told me if anything delayed her, I should stay by the windows because she would find me. Nathan smiled softly. Then she raised a very trustworthy daughter. Lily looked down at the white gift bag in her hands. She always says promises matter even when nobody else is watching. Those simple words lingered in Nathan's thoughts. They sounded remarkably similar to lessons he had tried to teach Ethan after his wife's passing. Character was never measured when life was easy. It was measured in quiet moments when nobody expected anything from you. Nathan glanced toward the gift bag once more. A corner of colorful tissue paper had shifted slightly, revealing what looked like the edge of a handmade birthday card. Crayon colors peeked through the opening beside carefully folded construction paper. "Did you make that yourself?" he asked. Lily brightened a little. "Every part of it. Your mother is going to treasure it." "I hope so." She paused before adding, "She always tells me handmade things carry pieces of our hearts." Nathan could not help smiling. She is right. Before either of them spoke again, a photographer approached with an enthusiastic grin. "Mr. Walker, everyone is gathering for the donor recognition photograph. They are waiting for you." Nathan looked toward the crowded stage where executives and philanthropists were already arranging themselves beneath bright lights. "Thank you," he answered politely. "Please begin without me." The photographer blinked with surprise. "Without you, sir?" Nathan nodded. "Yes." The young man hurried away, clearly uncertain how to explain the unexpected answer. Lily looked up at Nathan with puzzled eyes. "Were they calling for you?" "Yes." "Should you go?" Nathan considered the question for a moment before smiling warmly. Sometimes the most important place to stand is not where everyone is looking. Lily lowered her eyes, almost embarrassed by the attention he continued giving her. "You are missing something important because of me." "No," Nathan replied. "I think I found something important because of you." The orchestra shifted into another graceful melody while guests filled the ballroom with polite conversation between speeches. Somewhere nearby, glasses clinked together in celebration. Yet Nathan noticed something else entirely. Lily's stomach gave the faintest little growl. She immediately pressed the gift bag closer, hoping nobody had heard. Nathan pretended not to notice for her sake. Instead, he looked toward a nearby dessert table decorated with miniature cheesecakes, fresh fruit, and warm chocolate pastries. "Would it be all right if I brought you something to eat while we wait?" Lily hesitated. "Only if I can save some for my mom." Nathan's expression softened even more. "Of course. She has been working since early this morning," Lily explained. "She probably forgot to eat again." Nathan stopped walking before he had taken his first step toward the dessert table. He slowly turned back to Lily. "Working?" he asked quietly. Lily nodded. "Yes. She is here tonight." Nathan looked across the magnificent ballroom one more time. Hundreds of smiling faces surrounded him, but suddenly only one question mattered. If Lily's mother was already inside the building, then why had an 8-year-old little girl spent the entire evening standing alone, waiting for someone who seemed only a few steps away? For several quiet seconds Nathan said nothing. The music continued, conversations drifted through the ballroom, and another burst of applause echoed from the stage, yet the single sentence Lily had spoken seemed louder than everything else. Her mother was here. Somewhere beneath the same glittering chandeliers, inside the same celebration honoring generosity, a little girl had been left waiting alone because her mother was working. Nathan looked around with fresh eyes. He no longer saw only donors and executives. He noticed the waitstaff carrying heavy serving trays with careful smiles. He noticed attendants refilling water glasses before anyone had to ask. He noticed housekeeping employees moving silently through side hallways, making certain every detail appeared effortless. Suddenly the evening looked different. There were two completely different worlds sharing the same room, one applauded and one almost invisible. "What kind of work does your mom do here?" Nathan asked gently. Lily smiled with unmistakable pride. "She helps make tonight beautiful." Nathan waited for her to continue. "She says people remember how they feel more than what they eat, so she works very hard to make everyone feel welcome." Nathan nodded slowly. "That sounds like important work." Lily beamed. "I think so too." Before he could ask another question, a woman wearing an event headset hurried toward them with an anxious expression. "There you are," she said, looking directly at Lily. "Sweetheart, you cannot stand here during the keynote presentation. We need to keep the windows clear." Lily immediately lowered her eyes. "I am sorry," she whispered. "I was only waiting for my mom." The coordinator sighed, clearly overwhelmed by the responsibilities of the evening. "I know, honey, but perhaps you should wait in the staff lounge instead." Nathan stepped forward with calm courtesy. "Excuse me," he said. "She is not causing any disruption." The woman recognized him instantly. "Mr. Walker, I apologize. We simply have procedures during the program." Nathan's voice remained warm and respectful. "Of course. But if her mother expects to find her here, moving her somewhere else would only make that reunion more difficult." The coordinator hesitated. She glanced from Nathan to Lily before offering an understanding smile. "Very well. She may remain for now." "Thank you," Nathan replied. As the woman walked away, Lily looked up with surprise. "You did not have to help me." Nathan smiled gently. "Sometimes people are following rules so quickly that they forget the reason those rules exist." Lily thought about that quietly. "My mom says kindness is more important than being important." Nathan laughed softly. "Your mother and I might agree on many things." The ballroom lights dimmed again as the keynote speaker approached the stage. A spotlight swept across the room, settling on the foundation president while guests returned to their seats. Rows of elegant tables filled with polished silverware and crystal glasses became perfectly still. Nathan knew he was expected to sit in the front row beside distinguished sponsors. Instead, he remained beside Lily near the windows. A few curious glances drifted their way. Some guests whispered politely. Others looked confused that one of the evening's principal donors had chosen to miss the opening presentation for a conversation with an unknown child. Nathan ignored every curious look. His attention stayed exactly where he believed it belonged. Lily carefully opened her little gift bag just enough to peek inside. Nathan caught a glimpse of folded colored paper, a hand-decorated bookmark, and a tiny bracelet made from blue and white beads. "Those are beautiful," he said. Lily smiled proudly. "I made every bead bracelet by hand after school. Your mother will love it." "I hope she does." Her smile softened into quiet hope. "She has not celebrated her birthday in years because she always spends everything on me. So this year I wanted my birthday present to be for her instead." Nathan felt his throat tighten. In a room overflowing with expensive gifts, luxury auctions, and generous pledges worth millions of dollars, the most valuable present he had seen all evening rested inside a simple white paper bag held carefully by a little girl who had almost disappeared into the crowd. Edit the foundation president began speaking from the brightly lit stage, thanking generous sponsors whose names appeared across enormous projection screens. Every announcement was followed by warm applause that rolled across the ballroom before fading into respectful silence again. Nathan listened without truly hearing the words. His thoughts remained beside him, where Lily carefully held her little white gift bag as though it contained the greatest treasure in the building. "Does your mom know it is your birthday today?" he asked quietly. Lily nodded. "She hugged me before school this morning." "Did you celebrate together?" Her smile became smaller, but it never disappeared. "She promised we would celebrate after work. She always keeps her promises." Nathan admired the certainty in her voice. There was no resentment, only faith. It reminded him of Ethan when he was younger, believing with absolute confidence that his father would always come home no matter how long the workday lasted. Those promises had shaped Nathan into the man he had become. He wondered what kind of woman had raised a little girl whose first instinct on her own birthday was to think about someone else. "Has your mom worked here for a long time?" Nathan asked. "Almost 1 year," Lily answered. "She says everybody deserves beautiful memories, even if they only come for one night." Nathan looked around the magnificent ballroom once again. The flowers, the elegant centerpieces, the carefully folded napkins, and the flawless service had not appeared by accident. Countless unseen hands had created this evening so strangers could enjoy it for a few hours. "Your mother sounds proud of her work." Lily nodded immediately. "She is. She says honest work always has dignity." Before Nathan could respond, a familiar voice called from behind him. "Nathan, everyone has been looking for you." He turned to see Evelyn Grant, the 78-year-old founder of the Hope Horizons Children's Foundation. Despite her elegant evening gown and silver hair, she carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who had spent decades serving others before herself. She smiled warmly before noticing Lily standing beside him. "Well," Evelyn said softly, "and who is your young friend?" "This is Lily," Nathan replied. "We have been keeping each other company." Evelyn bent. The applause rose once again as Evelyn Grant stepped gracefully onto the stage, welcoming the audience with the warmth that had defined the foundation for decades. Nathan remained where he was, quietly grateful that she had understood without asking another question. Lily leaned against the tall window, watching tiny reflections of the city lights shimmer across the glass. Beyond the skyline, evening had settled peacefully over the streets below, but inside the ballroom the celebration continued with polished elegance. Nathan noticed that Lily occasionally glanced toward a pair of service doors near the back of the room. Every time they opened, hope flickered across her face for only a heartbeat before fading into patient acceptance. "Is that where your mom usually comes from?" he asked softly. Lily nodded. "She always uses those doors." "Do you know what she is doing now?" "Probably helping serve dinner." Nathan looked toward the doors. Uniformed servers entered and exited in steady rhythm, each carrying trays with practiced precision. Their pace was quick, their expressions professional, and most guests never looked directly at them. Nathan suddenly realized that although he had attended charity galas for years, he had never once wondered about the people whose quiet work made every event possible. "Does your mom get to sit down at all tonight?" Lily smiled gently. "She says later." "And do you believe her?" "Yes." Her answer came without hesitation. "She never lies to me." At that moment, one of the service doors opened again. A woman in a neatly pressed catering uniform stepped into the ballroom carrying a silver tray filled with coffee cups. She moved carefully between tables, offering warm smiles while remaining almost invisible to the conversations surrounding her. Lily's eyes brightened immediately. "That is my mom," she whispered. Nathan followed her gaze. The woman appeared to be in her mid-30s, with light brown hair pulled neatly into a simple bun and gentle features softened by quiet exhaustion. Even from across the room, he could see that she carried herself with dignity despite the long hours written across her face. She paused briefly near a table of guests, answered a polite request, then continued toward another section of the ballroom without ever looking toward the windows. "Why does she not come over?" Nathan asked carefully. Lily lowered her voice. "She told me she cannot leave her station until someone covers for her." Nathan watched Olivia continue serving guests who accepted fresh coffee with distracted smiles, most never meeting her eyes. One executive continued talking through a business conversation without acknowledging the person who had just filled his cup. Another guest accepted a dessert plate while checking messages on a phone. Olivia thanked each person anyway before moving quietly to the next table. Nathan felt an unexpected weight settle over his heart. Lily did not complain. She did not call for her mother or wave to get her attention. Instead, she stood exactly where she had promised to wait, protecting the surprise hidden inside her little white gift bag. She does not want me to interrupt, Lily explained. She says everyone deserves good service. Nathan looked down at the child beside him. And what do you deserve? Lily thought carefully before answering. I get my mom after work. That is enough. Nathan drew a slow breath. There was remarkable peace in her words, but there was also quiet sacrifice. Across the ballroom, Olivia finally paused for just a second to adjust the tray in her hands. As she turned slightly, her eyes drifted toward the windows. She spotted Lily standing exactly where she had left her. Relief washed gently across her face, followed immediately by a grateful smile so small that almost no one else would have noticed it. Then Olivia noticed Nathan standing beside her daughter. Surprise replaced relief. Their eyes met across the crowded ballroom for only an instant before another guest politely asked for assistance. Olivia nodded with professional courtesy, returned to her responsibilities, and disappeared once again into the moving sea of tables. Nathan remained perfectly still. He had expected to meet a tired employee. Instead, in that single fleeting glance, he had seen a mother carrying quiet strength, unwavering grace, and the same kind of silent determination he had once seen reflected in the mirror after promising his own son that everything would somehow be all right. Olivia continued moving from table to table with calm efficiency, balancing heavy trays with the quiet confidence that came only from long hours of honest work. Nathan noticed something else now that he had seen her face clearly. Every few minutes, no matter how busy she became, her eyes instinctively searched the ballroom until they found Lily standing safely by the windows. Only then would she allow herself the smallest breath before returning to another guest. It was a routine so natural that few people would ever recognize it, but Nathan understood it immediately. Parents never truly stopped watching their children. Even while carrying responsibilities that seemed impossible, a mother's heart always knew exactly where to look. Lily smiled softly each time her mother glanced in her direction. Neither of them waved. Neither interrupted the other's responsibility. Their silent exchange lasted less than 2 seconds each time, yet it carried more love than many conversations Nathan had witnessed throughout the evening. She always checks, Lily whispered proudly. Even when she is busy. Nathan nodded. I noticed. Lily looked down at the bracelet inside her gift bag. She thinks I do not realize she skips dinner during these events. Nathan frowned gently. How do you know? Because when we get home, she always says she is not hungry. But I hear her stomach while she reads me bedtime stories. Nathan felt his chest tighten again. There was no bitterness in Lily's voice, only the quiet observation of a child who loved her mother deeply enough to notice the sacrifices hidden between ordinary moments. Across the ballroom, servers began clearing empty appetizer plates while volunteers prepared the main course. The foundation president concluded her remarks to warm applause, and the master of ceremonies stepped forward to announce that Nathan Walker would soon deliver the keynote address. Several heads turned, searching for him near the front tables. Instead, they found him standing beside a little girl near the windows. Curious whispers spread gently through the room. Nathan barely noticed. He was watching Olivia as she accepted another tray from the kitchen entrance. The tray looked noticeably heavier than the last one, yet she lifted it without complaint and continued serving every table with the same gracious smile. Does your mom always work this hard? Nathan asked quietly. Lily nodded. She says when people trust you with a job, you should give them your best. That is a wonderful lesson. She learned it from my dad. Nathan paused. Your father taught her that? Lily's smile became tender. Before he went to heaven. Nathan remained silent for a respectful moment. I am sorry, Lily. She looked up at him with surprising peace. It happened a long time ago. Mommy says love does not disappear just because someone is no longer here. Nathan slowly nodded. Those words reached a place inside him that few people ever touched. He remembered sitting beside Ethan years earlier, struggling to explain that his mother's love would always remain part of their lives even though she could no longer sit beside them at the dinner table. Children often understood the heart better than adults did. Lily carefully reached into the gift bag and removed the small handmade bracelet. Tiny blue and white beads reflected the ballroom lights like little stars. One silver bead rested in the center, engraved with a single word. Hope. I saved my allowance for that bead, Lily said proudly. Mom always tells me never to lose hope. Nathan looked at the bracelet for several quiet seconds. It was worth only a few dollars by any financial measure. Yet he doubted he had seen anything more valuable all evening. At that exact moment, Olivia finally finished serving the last table in her section. She quietly handed her empty tray to another employee, took a slow breath, and looked toward the windows once again. This time, instead of returning immediately to work, she began walking carefully toward Lily, her tired face brightened by the unmistakable joy of a mother who had finally reached the moment she had been waiting for all day. Olivia slowed as she approached the windows, smoothing a loose strand of hair behind her ear before offering Lily the warm smile she had clearly been saving throughout the entire evening. Happy birthday, sweetheart, she said softly, her voice carrying the gentle exhaustion of a long day mixed with a mother's unmistakable joy. Lily hurried forward and wrapped her arms around her mother without saying a word. Olivia held her close for several quiet seconds, closing her eyes as if the embrace alone was enough to erase every hour she had spent working. Nathan stepped back instinctively, giving them the privacy they deserved. Some moments belonged only to family. When they finally separated, Lily lifted the little white gift bag with both hands. This is for you, she said proudly. Olivia blinked in surprise. For me? Lily nodded eagerly. You always make my birthdays special, so this year I wanted to give you something first. Olivia carefully accepted the bag, almost afraid to wrinkle the tissue paper. She slowly opened it and found the handmade birthday card decorated with bright crayons, the carefully crafted bookmark, and finally the tiny bracelet made from blue and white beads. Her fingertips trembled as she reached the silver bead engraved with the word hope. For a long moment she simply stared at it without speaking. Then she looked at her daughter with eyes glistening beneath the ballroom lights. You spent your allowance on this, she whispered. Lily nodded. Because you always tell me never to lose hope. Olivia pressed the bracelet gently against her heart before kneeling to hug Lily once more. This is the most beautiful gift I have ever received, she said quietly. Nathan watched the scene with unexpected emotion. Around them, guests continued enjoying elegant meals served on fine china while conversations drifted from table to table. Yet none of it seemed as meaningful as a little girl giving her mother a bracelet worth only a few dollars and a love beyond measure. Olivia finally noticed Nathan standing nearby. She rose gracefully and offered an apologetic smile. Mr. Walker, I am so sorry if Lily interrupted your evening. Nathan immediately shook his head. She did exactly the opposite. Olivia looked puzzled. She reminded me why evenings like this are supposed to exist. Olivia glanced affectionately toward Lily before answering. She has a way of reminding people about what truly matters. Nathan smiled. I believe she inherited that from her mother. Before Olivia could respond, the master of ceremonies returned to the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, we are honored to welcome our keynote speaker, Mr. Nathan Walker. The ballroom erupted into warm applause. Dozens of faces turned toward the windows, finally noticing where Nathan had been standing all this time. An event coordinator hurried over with a polite but anxious expression. Mr. Walker, everyone is ready. Nathan nodded calmly, then looked back at Olivia and Lily. Would you both do me a favor? Olivia appeared uncertain. If we can. Please stay exactly where you are for another minute. She exchanged a curious glance with Lily before quietly agreeing. Nathan walked toward the stage through rows of elegantly dressed guests. Conversations softened as he passed. Some expected another speech about philanthropy, financial responsibility, or charitable growth. Others assumed he would thank donors whose generosity had funded another successful year. Nathan reached the podium and rested both hands lightly upon it. He looked across the magnificent ballroom, taking in the crystal chandeliers, the decorated tables, the distinguished guests, and finally the quiet corner beside the windows where a little girl and her mother still stood together. Only then did he realize that before speaking another word about generosity, he first needed everyone in the room to notice what generosity had looked like all along. The applause slowly faded until the ballroom became almost perfectly still. Nathan looked across the sea of familiar faces before speaking in the calm, measured voice that had earned the respect of boardrooms across America. "Tonight we have celebrated generosity," he began. "We have recognized remarkable donations, remarkable organizations, and remarkable people. But before I say another word, I would like everyone to look toward the windows at the back of this room." Hundreds of heads turned together. Conversations disappeared. Crystal glasses rested quietly on white tablecloths. For the first time that evening, every guest noticed the woman in the catering uniform standing beside a little girl holding an empty white gift bag. Neither of them understood why the entire room was suddenly looking in their direction. Nathan continued. "For the last hour, I have stood beside a young lady named Lily. Today is her birthday." A soft murmur spread through the audience. Nathan waited for the room to settle once more. She spent the evening waiting for her mother because her mother was working here, making this event beautiful for the rest of us. She never complained. She never asked for attention. She simply kept her promise to stay where her mother could find her. Nathan paused, allowing every word to settle naturally. "Then I learned something even more extraordinary. On her own birthday, Lily brought a gift, not for herself, but for her mother." The ballroom fell silent again. Nathan looked toward Olivia, whose cheeks had turned pink with humble embarrassment as she instinctively reached for Lily's hand. "Ladies and gentlemen," Nathan said gently, "we often measure generosity by the size of a donation. Tonight an 8-year-old girl reminded me that generosity is measured by the size of a heart." No one applauded. No one moved. The silence carried far more meaning than applause ever could. Nathan smiled warmly before looking toward Evelyn Grant. She immediately understood. Without a single word, she nodded to the kitchen staff. A few moments later, the ballroom doors opened again. Instead of another elegant dessert display, several servers emerged carrying a beautifully decorated birthday cake covered with glowing candles. A quiet gasp moved through the room. The orchestra gently shifted into a familiar birthday melody. Lily looked around in complete disbelief before turning toward her mother. "Is that for me?" she whispered. Olivia could barely speak. "I think it is, sweetheart." Nathan stepped down from the stage and walked back across the ballroom, stopping in front of Lily with the same gentle smile he had offered when they first met beside the windows. "Would you do us the honor of celebrating your birthday with everyone here?" Lily looked up at her mother first. Olivia nodded through grateful tears. "Go ahead, sweetheart." As the cake was placed before her, every guest in the ballroom joined together to sing. Executives, volunteers, servers, donors, musicians, and staff became one single voice. Nathan quietly noticed that for the first time all evening, nobody seemed interested in titles or status. They were simply people, celebrating a little girl who had unknowingly reminded them what the evening had always been about. After Lily blew out the candles, she closed her eyes for a brief moment before opening them again with a peaceful smile. Nathan knelt beside her one last time. "What did you wish for?" he asked softly. Lily grinned. "If I tell you, it might not come true." Nathan laughed gently. "Fair enough." Olivia slipped the tiny bracelet onto her wrist, the silver bead engraved with the word hope catching the warm light from the chandeliers. She looked at Nathan with quiet gratitude. Thank you for seeing us, she said. Nathan slowly shook his head. No, he answered. Thank you for reminding me to look. Long after the final guests departed and the ballroom lights began to dim, people remembered very little about the speeches, the auction, or the record-breaking donations announced that night. What they carried home instead was the image of a little girl who waited faithfully for her mother, a hard-working woman whose quiet dignity never asked for recognition, and a father who discovered that the greatest miracle was not changing someone else's life with wealth, but allowing simple kindness to change his own.